What's up, guys? Welcome back to another predictions video. This week we're going over the UFC Fight Night 114 card in Mexico City. We're just coming off the card in Anaheim with Jon Bones Jones winning the title, the light heavyweight title against DC Daniel Cormier. It's a great card. It's a bit of a drop off as far as competition is concerned coming into this Mexico City card. It's I don't know. I kind of feel like maybe there's some guys on this card that maybe a few years back wouldn't be in the UFC, but let's go ahead and get right into it. First up on the card, we got Alvey Herrera versus Gerald Rinaldi. I like Rinaldi in this fight. I think he's the better all-around fighter. I think cardio is going to play a factor really for this card overall. It'll be interesting to see how it affects everyone on there. They're fighting in Mexico City. Traditionally, Mexico City has been a tough place for guys with their cardio. But there's no heavyweights on this card, so we'll see what happens. Like I said, I like Rinaldi in this fight. I think he's faced the better competition. He had a tough fight versus Trujillo, but I kind of feel like he won that fight against Trujillo, in my opinion anyway. So this is a lightweight fight. I got Rinaldi by submission in the second round by rear naked choke. Next we got a super interesting matchup in my opinion. We got two debuting, both undefeated fighters. We got Joseph Morales versus Roberto Sanchez. Both these guys seem like just nasty on the ground. This is going to be a flyweight fight. It's really interesting to see these new guys coming into the flyweight division. These are guys coming in as flyweights, whereas when the division first started, it was kind of guys coming down from bantamweight and other divisions, you know, moving into the newly formed flyweight division. So these are a couple guys coming in. Both undefeated. Both are really good on the ground. It's a tough one. I'm going with Morales in this fight. It's hard to say why, because neither of these guys have a ton of fights or a ton of fight footage on them. I think it kind of depends on where the fight ends up. If Sanchez gets Morales' back, I think Sanchez will win for sure. If it stays standing, I think Morales probably has a slight edge. I hear some people picking Morales just based on kind of the fact that he's with Team Alpha Male. Not a bad reason, but I don't know if that's a great reason. Tough to call. It seems like a fight that you should pick a submission in. Like one of these guys should catch the other, you would think. I don't have it going that way. I think maybe the jiu-jitsu cancels each other out, or just by the fact that I have Morales winning. I think maybe Sanchez is a little more capable of submitting Morales than Morales is of submitting Sanchez, and I'm going with Morales in this fight. I got it by decision. We'll see what happens. I think it's one of the most compelling fights on the card, though. I would have it as my fight of the night because I think it has the capability of being like just a sick jiu-jitsu ground fighting match. But I don't know, people don't really like the ground fighting too much, so I went with another fight as the fight of the night. But so I got Morales by decision in that fight. Next on the card, we got Jose Quinonez versus Diego Rivas. Kind of a tough fight to call. Like I said, it's one of these things where, you know, maybe the level of competition isn't what we're used to with the UFC, but nevertheless, these guys are in the UFC. It's in Mexico, which probably has a big factor. Quinonez is from Mexico. Rivas is from Chile, so really trying to grow that South American market, and I understand why. You know, fighting's popular down there. So heard a lot of people going with Quinonez in this fight. I don't know. There's not really a good reason to. There's not really a good reason to go with either one of these guys. I'm going with Rivas. he's super suspect on the ground. If it goes to the ground, Quinonez will win for sure. But if it stays standing, I feel like Rivas has a good chance of fighting. I like his athletic ability. Also, over the few fights that he's had, I feel like he's improved. You know, I've seen improvement, so it makes me think coming into this fight we'll see a better version than we saw before. Whereas with Quinonez, I feel like we've just kind of seen the same guy over and over again. So I got Rivas by decision. That's also in the bantamweight division. Next up on the card, we got another bantamweight fight. We got Henry Briones versus Yahya. Kind of hard to know who to go with on this one as well. I'm going to go with Yahya. I know a lot of people aren't going with him. I know they're going with Briones. One of my main reasons for this is I feel like if you look at Yahya's record, kind of the guys that he loses to are more kind of the better guys in the division, more in that top 15 to top 10 range are the guys that he doesn't do so well against. I don't think Briones is in that category. I like Yahya's ground game. I really do. I think he's got good submissions. I think he'll be able to get it to the ground. I got Yahya by submission in the third round via Kimura. Next up on the card, we got Dustin Ortiz. And this is going to be another flyweight fight. We got Dustin Ortiz versus Hector Sandoval. Ortiz has had a bit of a rough run here lately. Really kind of his UFC career overall. He's been in the UFC for a while now, and he's just kind of been a 500 fighter. A lot of his losses have come against the best competition, but nonetheless, if he's not winning those fights, then it's tough to roll with him. On the flip side, we got Sandoval coming in. He's making his UFC debut, I believe. Anyway, let me double check on that real quick. I believe this is Sandoval's debut. Okay, it's not his debut. Okay, he's good. That's right. He's had a few fights. The only stumble he's had was against Wilson Hayes. It was in his debut on short notice, a tough matchup. Really, he's doing well against Hayes, and he just got caught. I really like Sandoval. He's just a scrapper straight up, man. And I think this is going to be a good night for him. He trains out of Team Alpha Male. He's got good stand-up, good on the ground, maybe more of a ground fighter. I like his aggressive style. I think Ortiz doesn't respond well to the aggressive guys. I'm going with Sandoval by submission in the first round via guillotine. A lot of that comes out of that alpha male camp, team guillotine in the house. I'm picking the first round because I think Ortiz has only one shot of winning this fight, and that's by grappling and getting Sandoval to the ground. And I think in the first round, in doing so, when they're both dry, I think there's a possibility there for him to get caught in one of those alpha male guillotines. So I got Sandoval by submission guillotine in the first round. Next up on the card, we got Brad Scott versus Jack Hermansson, or Hermansson, however you want to say it. I don't know. I hear the guys on the announce team call it Hermansson, so that's what I'll say. Kind of hard to know who to go with on this one. Both stand-up fighters. I like Brad Scott's ability to take a punch. He's got kind of a big head, and he's a guy that'll hang in there. Hermansson on the other side of it, real kind of flowy type stand-up fighter. Real technical. His strikes are nice and technical, though. I wouldn't call his style awkward. I just think it's a real loose, you know, kind of fluid type of style. I'm going with Hermansson in this fight. I think just his movement, and again, being in Mexico City, just from looking at it, just my opinion, watching these two guys fight, I think Hermansson has the better cardio, and I think cardio is going to play a factor in a lot of these fights. So I got Hermansson via decision. This is... okay, it's not my pick for fight of the night, but it could be. I think this is a good candidate for fight of the night. Also, that's a fight in the middleweight division. Next, the start of the main card. Another kind of one of these weird, not know who to go with, not sure what to make of either of these guys' fights. We got Alejandro Perez versus Andre Soukhamthath. Soukhamthath is, I believe he's making his debut. I should be more up on top of this before I do these videos, shouldn't I? So we got Soukhamthath. Maybe it's his second fight. Maybe he already debuted. Yeah, he debuted versus Albert Morales. A split decision. I actually thought Soukhamthath won that fight. He's kind of an interesting guy. He's a straight up scrapper also, man. He comes in and he's not afraid to throw for sure. Again, tough to know who to go with on this fight. I like Perez. He fights out of AKA. I mean, going with based on whose camp they're out of isn't the best thing in the world. Soukhamthath's actually, he was formerly out of Black Zillions. I know they disbanded, so I don't know who he's really with anymore, but he has showed some finishing ability. It's a tough fight to know who to go with. I was watching Soukhamthath's other fights outside of the UFC. I felt like maybe he had some favorable matchups in those fights. Guys that were kind of undersized a little bit, and I don't know, he just... I don't know why I'm not going with him. He seems like a good fighter, you know. Maybe he'll come in and smoke Perez, but I like Perez. I like his pressure. Like I said, I believe cardio is going to play a factor. I think maybe he'll be more prepared for the cardio. I think he's a guy who's already in Mexico City. He's adjusting. And also, I can't help but feel fighting in the hometown, if it goes to a decision, which is my prediction, that it'll be a decision, that maybe you'll have that hometown edge, you know. Not that that's the thing that I agree with, but it's something to consider. Also, this is a bantamweight division. I got Perez via split decision. This is my pick for fight of the night. Next on the card, we got another matchup with in the middleweight division with Rashad Evans getting in his second fight at middleweight. We got Sam Alvey versus Rashad Evans. What can you say at this point? There's no reason to pick Evans in any of his fights anymore at this point, just based on how he's looked over his past few fights. Hasn't been fighting consistently at all over the past few years. It's just, I mean, this is a tough one because there's no reason to pick Evans, especially after how he fought against Dan Kelly. Not just Dan Kelly, but you go back to like his Rogerio Nogueira fight. I mean, it's like, why are you losing to these guys? It just doesn't make sense. Initially, I was going with Alvey. I did change my pick, which I'll probably regret, of course. I'm going with Evans. No good reason whatsoever, just based on the fact that I feel like if he took this fight, based on how he fought in his last fight, that maybe he'll be more motivated to come in and win, be a bit more aggressive, just maybe change something up. Maybe he feels like he has something to prove. I feel like his wrestling ability alone should be able to get him a win in this fight. If he just comes in there and just wrestles, goes for nothing else but a like a lay-and-pray grappling win, you know, kind of like how he did against Phil Davis, you know. I feel like he can get it done that way. Like I said, no good reason for making this pick. I got Evans by decision. Next up, we got Martin Bravo versus Humberto Dandenay. I don't know how you say that, but Dandenay. A guy making his UFC debut from Peru. Bravo, a guy from Mexico. He's an undefeated fighter. I like going with those guys. Again, not really sure what to make of these two guys. They are both young. They're both, you know, early in their careers. So I'm not saying they shouldn't be in the UFC, but can't help but think if this were in the United States or Canada or something like that, I don't think these guys would be on the card, or if the UFC weren't putting shows in Mexico, I kind of don't feel like these guys would be in the UFC. But I was watching some footage of Humberto. There's not a whole lot out there to watch. I don't know. He looks like he could have a chance. I mean, he had some nice kicks. His stand-up looked nice. The level of competition is suspect. I don't think Bravo's really fought anyone either, but in the fights that he has fought, he seems like he does have the ability to get the fight to the ground, and I think that'll get him the win in this fight. This is also a featherweight fight. I got Bravo by submission in the second round via rear naked choke. Next up, we got a very interesting matchup. We got Alan Jouban, at least in my opinion, it's interesting. In the welterweight division, we got Alan Jouban versus Nico Price. Really tough to know who to go with in this fight, in my opinion. I know a lot of people are going with Jouban. A lot of people thinking Price doesn't have a chance at all. I don't believe that. Price, gosh, he gets hit a lot. But I think kind of like Brad Scott, he's got like that ability to take those shots. He's got a big head. I think he's bringing a lot of power, a lot of athleticism. They're the same size technically as far as height is concerned, but if you look at Price, man, he's kind of this broad-shouldered type guy. Hard to know who to go with in this fight. I definitely think Jouban is the better technical striker, probably the better technically on the ground as well. Probably has better cardio. I'm going with Price in this fight. I just feel like he's one of these guys that can just come in there and get it done. Even if he's getting lit up for a few rounds, I feel like if he can get to the fight to the ground, I feel like he's got a lot of knockout power, just a lot of things that he can accomplish just by being the more powerful athlete. So I got Price by TKO in the third round. Next up, we got the co-main event. We got Randa Markos versus Alexa Grasso. Not much to know on Grasso. Markos has definitely faced the better competition. I like her grappling. Hard to know what to make of a lot of these women's fights. This is a strawweight fight in the women's division. Again, one of these things. I don't mean to be critical, particularly of the women. I'm glad that they're getting their shine, but you know, it's like, are these UFC level competition? You know, not compared to what we would see like 5, 6, 7 years ago. That's for sure. But I got Markos by decision, just based on the fact that she's looked somewhat decent against better competition and her grappling skills. So. Then in the main event, another interesting fight. We got Sergio Pettis going against Brandon Moreno in the flyweight division. Definitely seems like whoever wins this fight will be on their way to a title run. Probably not directly after this fight, but maybe this fight and one more fight after it. Tough one to pick here, at least for me anyway. I know people are going with Moreno. hard not to go with Moreno. Hard not to go with Pettis, too, though. I mean, look at Pettis. I mean, gosh, the only guys he's lost to, he was winning, like, the entire fight until he got caught against Caceres in a very late loss, and just got caught against Benoit as well. I mean, just kind of not a freak thing, because, I mean, obviously Benoit's a good fighter, but, I mean, he just got caught. Moreno, on the other hand, hard not to go with him. Hard not to go with Moreno. I am personally going with Moreno. I just think his pressure, grappling, his ability to get the fight to the ground is going to be key going up against Pettis. Pettis and his older brother Anthony have had a lot of trouble with guys that are good with that pressure grappling and getting them to the ground. One of my major things to consider, and this is really what made me go with Moreno, is his finishing ability. And what I mean by that is Moreno will be able to go into this fight and say in his head, this guy, Pettis, has no ability to finish me. I have all the ability in the world to finish him. So he can just come in there and go all out. I think that's kind of, you saw that when Pettis got caught by Benoit. They were both throwing hooks. Both of them landed, but Benoit is able to knock Pettis out with the counter hook, whereas Pettis could only just land that as a point. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's how Pettis wins. He wins these kind of point style fighting, and that's how he's gotten all of his wins. Now he's very, very good at that. He's very good at winning the point style matchups, but I think in this matchup, Moreno is just bringing too much pressure, too much ability to finish, and just good jiu-jitsu all around. So I got Moreno by submission in the third round via rear naked choke. And that'll do it. Hopefully this will be a good fight card. I know the level of competition is not what we saw last week, but hey, these guys are at the beginning of their career. We can see these guys progress or digress or wherever they go from here. So thanks so much for watching the video. Give me a like, give me a subscribe, leave a comment in the comment section. Also, you can follow me on Twitter at gingerbreadmfc. And until next time, peace.